When I was in Sunday school, I was about 7, and my Sunday school teacher asked me, why were the 3 wise men wise? And I went, holy mackerel. My rich dad says, well, it's obviously why you're failing. I said, why is that?
In this highlight, Robert Kiyosaki reveals 2 of the most life-changing stories that he's ever heard that came from his Sunday school teacher and his rich dad. Make sure you stay until the end because Kiyosaki changes the subject to share exactly how he avoids paying taxes and how you can too.
I'll tell you 2 stories. When I was in Sunday school, I was about 7, and my Sunday school teacher asked me, she says, why were the 3 wise men wise? And I said, well, because they were rich. And she goes, no. Why were the 3 wise men wise? I said, because they were rich. And she kept saying, well, why do you say they were rich? I said, well, they had frankincense, gold, and myrrh. And they came to give it to them. I'm not pushing religion here, but I went to a Christian school, Sunday school. So they had frankincense, gold, and myrrh. And she said, they were rich. She says, no, that's not the answer I'm looking for. And here's this young Sunday school teacher. She says, the reason they were rich is they always sought the best teachers. And I went, holy mackerel. So Patrick, about 2 years later, when I realized I'm not learning jack from my school teachers, and I go to a really rich kid's school, and I go, how come they're rich and I'm poor? My old man's the head of education, PhD, and I'm still poor. And I realized I had bad teachers. So what happened then is that my poor dad was a pretty good guy. He says, you should listen to your best friend's father, who was rich dad. I said, why listen to him? I said, because he's an entrepreneur. And I said, what are you? He says, poor dad says, I'm an employee. And I go, what's the difference? He says, it's a big difference. He says, entrepreneurs must know about money. Employees don't. It was like a big lesson. So the next lesson was this. So I got this job at Xerox. The same story you have is I get my little handy dandy sales planner out. I'm dying. Let's say there's 20 sales guys at the Xerox branch in Honolulu. I'm dying. I'm like, and this guy Sanchez flies in from Western Region, Santa Ana. He looks at my sales thing, and I got all these appointments, but no sales. And I'm going to get fired. So I said, I can't. I'm working hard, but I'm going to get fired. Because I had no sales. So I go, my rich dad's office was at Waikiki. So I go to rich dad's office and I show him my planner. He looks at it. He goes, okay. He says, let me ask you this. How many, you have to knock on doors. I had no established accounts. The FNGs and the FNU guy has to always cold call. That's as brutal as it comes. So I'm cold calling in Honolulu. I'm getting nowhere. But I'm making a lot of cold calls. So I show my rich dad my sales planner, just like you do with your guys. And I said, my rich dad says, well, it's obviously why you're failing. I said, why is that? He says, you're not failing enough. He says, if you want to become successful, you have to step up your failure rate. I went, what? Because in my poor dad's family, the academics family, PhDs and all this, failure means you're not successful. And to my rich dad, failure meant you were getting successful. So his advice to me, and I'm working for Xerox, I'm probably 28 years old. He goes, you got to step up your failure rate. Find a way to fail faster. So that's when you get creative. I can only make so many sales calls a day. So what I would do at night, let's say I left downtown Honolulu at 5, I would go to this nonprofit organization up the street, and I would dial for dollars. So I could make 30 sales calls in a night. And I didn't care if I failed or, I was just dialing to get people to donate money for this charity. And I failed 30 times a night. And I kept failing 30 times. That was my goal, fail 30 times a night. But you know what happened, Patrick? My sales at Xerox went up. It was the most amazing thing, because after a while, look at what I saw at your birthday party in Miami. Your people, men and women, have tremendous confidence. And when I meet somebody who's poor and struggling and all this, they lack that confidence. They're more afraid of what somebody thinks of them than they think of themselves. So that was the first thing I noticed. So, congratulations on being a great sales trainer, developing sales leaders. But for me to become successful, I had to step up my failure rate, which goes against everything school teachers teach you. So today, the reason I have so much money is because, Rich Dad Poor Dad is now 25 years old, is still number 20 in the world. And the academics still say, you still can't write. And I go, yeah, but I can sell. It's a bestseller. But these academic types, they say, but you can't spell. I said, I know, but I can sell.
Yeah.
It's a whole different value system. And it was turned down by everybody. But one of the biggest advantages I had is that when I wrote the book, I endorsed network marketing. Because in network marketing, if you have a good sales leader, you will learn the number one skill of an entrepreneur's ability to sell. So, I have very similar mindsets, different experience, same experiences. But if I could leave a message throughout, the reason I can buy so much real estate is because I make so much money. And if I don't invest in the real estate, I pay taxes. But most people can't invest in real estate because they don't have any money. But I'll show you what capitalism really is. This is, if you've seen the financial statement here, you have income, expense, asset, liability, and employees and self-employed focus here. And then B's and I's, or entrepreneurs like Patrick and myself, focus here. This is called the balance sheet. This is called the income statement. But the big problem here is this word here, tax. And Patrick talked about how taxes wipe you out. So what I had to learn was I had to learn to build a business here by selling, learn how to sell. So what happened is my income goes up here. So as my income goes up here, taxes just take it right away. So I had to find out how I could minimize my taxes legally and increase my income. And the way I do that is as an investor. So what happens for me is, let's say I make $1 million here. Okay, $1 million. If I do nothing, the government takes 60% of that. So I net 400,000 on $1 million. But the reason I had to learn how to invest in real estate was because I come down to the liability column here and I borrow 4 million. So I make $1 million there. And as an investor, which Rich Dad World recommends, is you learn how to acquire real estate. So if I borrow $4 million here, I step up my asset value to 5 million. And because I've stepped up my basis from 1 million plus debt to 4 million, I have a basis of 5 million. I pay no tax. If you understand that, that's why we teach real estate investing and stock investing and things like that. But of all the asset classes, it's real estate, because real estate runs on tax on debt. And the more debt you use, the less tax you pay. Because if people like myself and people who borrow money, if we don't borrow money, money doesn't come into existence. The only way money exists is after 1971, when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, the US dollar became debt. So the only way money could be created was for people like me to borrow money. So Ken McElroy and I borrowed $31 million to buy a piece of property in Austin, Texas. So we stepped it up by $31 million. We stepped it up over here to $50 million. And because we have a $50 million asset, the tax laws allow us to pay no taxes. And this income flows into me tax-free. That's capitalism. But they'll never teach you that. So what schools teach you is to be E's and S's, to be employees or specialists like a doctor or a lawyer or a real estate agent. But this is what my rich dad taught me, and that's what Patrick Bet-David teaches his guys. So this is real capitalism. And the reason we have Rich Dad's World is so you can learn to do this. before we came on the air, Patrick and I were talking about one of those nefarious people who's on YouTube all the time. And there's a lot of fakes on YouTube, as you guys know. And this guy was saying the way you invest in real estate is you go out and you start with a 200-unit apartment house for $40 million. Are you nuts? You know, if you buy a $40 million apartment house and you make a mistake, you bought the Titanic. You're going to go down with it. Without real financial education, without coaching, without really good guides like Patrick and I had, the U.S. is now a nation of renters. And everybody's going to rent because they can't afford a house. So it's good news. So that's why Rich Dad World exists, to assist you in understanding how you take $1 million, you borrow $4 million here, you come across here, make income here, and you wipe out your taxes legally. That's what Capitalist Manifesto is about. That's what Rich Dad's about. But I strongly recommend you choose your teachers wisely. This guy he's a very popular real estate guy. I wouldn't trust him. I mean, I do not trust him. He says, yeah, just go out and buy a 200 unit. You start big. You got to be crazy. So for those of you who want to do this here, make $1 million, learn how to sell. $1 million comes down here. I borrow 4, step up my basis to 5. It wipes out my taxes, and I make money tax-free. That's the way it's played. Okay, so thank you for listening to Rich Dad's World. And please invest in your financial education. But as Patrick and I were talking about, you've really got to choose your teachers wisely.
Click this video to watch Robert Kiyosaki and Ted Seidel reveal how retirement funds around the world are vulnerable to collapse and what you need to do to protect yours.